The Battle of Lexington and Concord was the first battle of the Revolutionary War. It happened on April 19th, 1775. Most of the battles of the Revolutionary War started because some of the colonists in America began protesting against the British by refusing to pay taxes. One of the acts of rebellion was the Boston Tea Party, which was led by Samuel Adams. Afterwards, John Hancock suggested that they declare independence from Britain and become the United States. That made Britain outraged, so the British decided that they needed to punish the rebel leaders, Samuel Adams and John Hancock, and destroy the American source of weapons. That is how the Battle of Lexington and Concord started. Paul Revere saw the British approaching while riding his horse and rushed to warn the colonists that the British were coming. The colonists were able to escape in time, and the local militiamen were able to save most of the weapons and ammunition. Some people say that the Battle of Lexington was such a small fight that it shouldn't even be called a battle. The Americans were led by Captain John Parker. The British were led by Major John Pitcairn. The British had a much bigger army than the Americans, and therefore they had a better chance of winning the battle. Neither side expected to actually fight, but then someone shot a musket, leaving the British with no choice other than to attack. The shot became known as the shot heard round the world. No one knows who fired the first shot, or even what side the shot came from. After the Americans fled, the British marched into Concord. There was little resistance. They searched the town for a malicious stash of weapons and munitions. The Americans had retreated over the North Bridge to the outskirts of Concord, and as the Americans waited, more and more local militiamen came, creating a much stronger army. As their ranks grew, the Americans decided to come back to Concord over the North Bridge. The British were waiting for the Americans at the bridge and fired at them, leaving 2 Americans killed and 4 Americans wounded. But the Americans would not back down to the Redcoats this time. The British weren't expecting the Americans to fight back, so they weren't prepared. The Americans were able to defeat the British troops at the bridge and made the British retreat. During the retreat, the British lost 73 men and 173 were wounded. The Americans lost 49 men and 41 were wounded. This is how the Battle of Concord was won. In a way, the British helped the Americans win the battle as the colonists started using the maneuvers they learned from the British against them. Bloopers!
And the pink one is too small.
One of the acts of rebellion was the Boston Tea Party, which was led by Samuel Adams. The Battle of Lexington Concord. Afterwards, John Chicken Thighs Paul Revere saw the British approaching while riding his horse. The shot became known as the shot heard around the world. Bye bye bloopers!